Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining in. So, I recently saw a question that I really um, was really intrigued by, and that was, is it bad to have a big ego? And I love this question on so many levels. First and foremost, because um, you know, from a worldly perspective, they talk about having a big ego as a problem. So it's kind of funny. It's like even in even in the world, they recognize that too much ego can be a problem. And of course, in Miracles has a slightly different perspective, related yet different, and that's that having any ego is a problem. In fact, from the Course's point of view, all of our problems stem from ego. Let me repeat that. Every single problem that any one of us has ever had, any problem that's happening, just look around the world today, and any problem you see, according to the Course, comes from ego. It has one source. That's kind of convenient if you think about it, that all of our problems have one source and ultimately have one solution. And ultimately that's God and or the recognition of our wholeness. And the two are very intimately related, given that our wholeness, our true nature is just a reflection of God, that God made us like himself. So, so we need to, to study the Course, we need a slightly different understanding of what ego is, because in the worldly perspective, it's almost like, well, um, a big ego is a problem, but there's this idea of like a normal sized ego. So let's redefine ego from the Course's perspective. Ego is the same as insanity, delusion, um, illusion, um, kind of like a sociopath, sadomasochist, suicidal, homicidal, world destroying thing. That's what the ego is. The cause of all suffering, the desire to suffer forever, the desire to have everyone and everything be suffered forever. Probably the desire to also destroy everything. It's just God won't allow that to happen. So, so as you can see from the Course's point of view, a little ego is a very big problem because that's like having a little homicidal, suicide, sadomasochist, insane, delusional um, being. Of course, you know, less ego would be better from a Course's point of view, but what we're still dealing with is insanity. So the other way to understand what the Course means by ego is everything that's literally trying to keep God separate. So before we go any further, the ego is nothing more than a thought system. It's a thought system that seems to be an alive entity, but isn't. It's just a false thought system. Nothing more, nothing less. It does appear to have a life of its own. For example, the ego tries to protect itself. The ego tries to keep things hidden. It's not that it's just a collection of thoughts. It's more like a computer program. And of course, we can understand this in the 20th and 21st century. They make computer programs that can outthink and outsmart some of the greatest chess players in the world. So, um, so it's important to think of it as something with self-preservation intelligence, not sentience, but definitely self-preservation intelligence. So, um, so it's literally, the desire to suffer and the cause of all suffering. And if God didn't put limits on the ego, then we would be in the experience of separation from God forever. That's the ego's end game. God just won't allow it. In response to the ego, God has given us the Holy Spirit, which is the call to joy. It's the truth placed within the mind that's clouded by, by the erroneous belief system of the ego. But within that very same mind is also the call to truth and the remembrance of truth. And not only that, the Holy Spirit beautifully speaks in a language that it can actually teach the ego, because this is a process of unlearning and of reinterpreting. And the ego is founded in interpretation and judgment that are always attack. Ego is everything I'm saying. It's like I'm saying 10 different things about the ego, but it's just looking at it from different perspectives. The ego is the will to attack and the belief that it needs to defend. What is the ego? Everything not good, everything unharmonious. So there's ego 101. And and yes, it is a problem to have a big ego, but it's also a problem to have a small ego. Love the question. Thanks so much, angels.